The emergency room of St. Catherine's Hospital had never seen such chaos. Dr. Reynolds stood frozen, his hands trembling as he looked down at the small boy lying motionless on the floor. Little Tommy Ashford, the 3-year-old son of billionaire Jonathan Ashford, had stopped breathing. The paramedics had already tried everything during the ambulance ride. Now, in the stark fluorescent lights of the hospital, time was running out. Dr. Reynolds was 42 years old, experienced, confident, but in this moment he felt utterly helpless. The boy had choked on something, a small toy piece that had lodged deep in his throat. They had tried the standard procedures, the Heimlich maneuver, back blows. Nothing worked. The object was stuck at an angle that made it nearly impossible to dislodge. Nurse Patricia stood behind him, her face pale with fear. She was 38, a mother herself, and seeing the small child lying there broke something inside her. Behind them, another paramedic named Marcus watched in horror. He was 35, usually so calm under pressure, but now his mouth hung open in shock. They had minutes, maybe less. Dr. Reynolds dropped to his knees beside the boy, ready to attempt another round of chest compressions. But then, like a swift shadow, someone pushed past him. It was a young black girl, no more than 16 years old. Her name was Zara Thompson, and she had been sitting in the waiting room for the past 2 hours. She wore dirty clothes. Her braided hair was pulled back in a simple style, and her face was smudged with grime. Zara had come to hospital because of a bad cut on her arm from working at a construction cleanup site. She was poor, working odd jobs to help her grandmother pay rent. No one had paid much attention to her in the waiting room, but Zara had been watching everything unfold with sharp, intelligent eyes. Now she moved with a speed and certainty that stunned everyone. "Wait, you can't," Dr. Reynolds started to say, reaching out to stop her. But Zara was already kneeling beside Tommy. She had a bright green cup in her hand, one she had grabbed from a nearby table. Without hesitation, she tilted the boy's head to the side and poured a small stream of water directly into his mouth, not down his throat, but carefully angled along the inside of his cheek. Dr. Reynolds started to protest again. This was against every protocol he knew, but something in Zara's focused expression made him pause. The girl's hands moved with surprising precision. She positioned Tommy's head at a specific angle, then used her fingers to apply pressure to certain points on his neck. It was a technique Dr. Reynolds had never seen before. Zara poured another careful stream of water, her movements deliberate and calm. The water created a thin channel along the side of the boy's throat. Then, with one swift motion, she turned Tommy onto his side and struck his back at a precise point between his shoulder blades. The angle was different from a standard back blow, more targeted, more intentional. Suddenly, there was a wet cough. Tommy's small body convulsed, and the toy piece shot out his mouth, carried by the water and the force of Zara's carefully placed strike. The room erupted in gasps. Tommy drew in a huge, rattling breath, then began to cry. It was the most beautiful sound Dr. Reynolds had ever heard. Nurse Patricia fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Marcus, the paramedic, let out a breath he didn't know he had been holding. Dr. Reynolds stared at Zara in complete disbelief. "How did you know to do that?" he whispered. Zara looked up at him, her young face serious and wise beyond her years. "My grandmother taught me," she said quietly. "She was a healer back in Nigeria. Before we came here, she explained that her grandmother had learned old techniques, passed down through generations, methods that combined traditional healing knowledge with practical emergency care. The water technique was used to create a slippery pathway and change the pressure dynamics in the throat. The specific angle and the targeted strike worked together in a way that modern medicine had somehow overlooked. The water doesn't go down the windpipe if you angle it right," Zara explained. It coats the obstruction and changes how it sits. Then the strike from that exact point uses the body's own structure to force it out. Dr. Reynolds felt humbled. Here he was, with all his years of medical training and expensive education, and this 16-year-old girl had known something he didn't. He had been so focused on following the textbook that he had forgotten to think creatively. By this time, Jonathan Ashford had burst through the emergency room doors. He was 55 years old, a powerful businessman worth hundreds of millions. He wore an expensive suit, his silver hair perfectly styled, his presence commanding. But when he saw his son crying and breathing on the floor, he fell apart completely. He rushed to Tommy and scooped him up, holding him close as tears poured down his face. "My boy," he sobbed, "my precious boy." When he learned what had happened, Jonathan turned to Zara. The girl was already trying to slip away, uncomfortable with the attention. "Wait," Jonathan called out, his voice choked with emotion. "Please wait." Zara stopped, looking uncertain. Jonathan approached her, still holding Tommy in his arms. "You saved my son's life," he said, his voice trembling. "The doctors couldn't help him, but you did." Zara shifted uncomfortably. "I just did what my grandmother taught me," she said softly. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Dr. Reynolds spoke up, his professional pride swallowed by honest gratitude. "Not anyone. What you did required knowledge and courage." He looked at Zara with genuine respect. "Would you be willing to teach us that technique?" he asked, "so we can help others?" Zara nodded slowly. Over the next hour, as Tommy was checked and monitored, Zara explained the method to the medical staff. She drew diagrams on paper, showed them the angles, explained the pressure points. Dr. Reynolds and the other staff listened with rapt attention. The 16-year-old girl, who they would have dismissed earlier, was teaching them something invaluable. Jonathan Ashford watched all of this with growing emotion. When Zara finally prepared to leave, he stopped her again. "Please," he said, "let me do something for you." Zara shook her head. "I don't want money," she said firmly. "I just want to make sure Tommy is okay." But Jonathan persisted gently. He learned that Zara had dropped out of school to work and support her grandmother, that she dreamed of becoming a doctor but could never afford it. "What if I could help with that?" Jonathan asked quietly, not as payment, but as gratitude. He explained that he wanted to set up a scholarship fund in Zara's name, one that would pay for her education and also help other young people like her, kids who had knowledge and talent but lacked opportunity. Zara's eyes filled with tears. "I could go back to school," she whispered. "I could learn to help people properly." "You already know how to help people," Dr. Reynolds said warmly. "Now you'll learn to do even more." In the weeks that followed, Zara's story spread through the hospital and beyond. The girl who saved a billionaire's son became a symbol of something important. She reminded people that wisdom can come from unexpected places, that traditional knowledge and modern medicine both have value, that poverty doesn't mean powerlessness. Jonathan kept his promise. He set up the Zara Thompson Scholarship Fund, which would help dozens of young people pursue medical careers. Zara enrolled in a special program that would fast-track her education, and the water technique she had demonstrated was studied, refined, and added to emergency response training. Dr. Reynolds later admitted that the experience changed him. "I had become arrogant."
"This area here is critical. We need to focus our resources here to improve
my
patient flow and
expensive education
outcomes."
meant I knew everything. He learned to listen more, to respect traditional knowledge, to stay humble. Nurse Patricia started volunteering to teach first aid in underserved communities. She realized that life-saving knowledge should be available to everyone, not just those who could afford medical school. For Zara, life transformed in ways she never imagined, but she never forgot where she came from. Every weekend, she returned to her grandmother's small apartment. She would sit with the old woman and learn more of the traditional healing methods. This knowledge saved a life grandmother Zara would say, "Your wisdom mattered." Her grandmother would smile and nod. "Our people have always known how to heal," she would reply. "It is good that others are finally willing to learn." Years later, Dr. Zara Thompson would walk across a graduation stage to receive her medical degree. In the audience, Jonathan Ashford sat with his son Tommy, now a healthy, happy child. Dr. Reynolds attended too, along with Nurse Patricia, and many others whose lives Zara had touched. They all understood something profound, that sometimes the most important moments in our lives come from the most unexpected places, that kindness and knowledge can exist in people we might otherwise overlook, that a 16-year-old girl in dirty clothes might hold wisdom that could save a life, and that when we open our hearts and minds to learning from everyone around us, we all become richer for it. Zara's story reminds us that we should never underestimate anyone based on their appearance, their age, or their circumstances. True wisdom and courage can shine from the most surprising sources. All we have to do is be humble enough to recognize it. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment below about a time when someone unexpected taught you something valuable. Your story might inspire someone else today.